than that. So, like, it doesn't change the result. Trust me, all right? We lost, but we're not lost anymore.
That was last week. Well, they're lost again. Put the signs out in the neighborhood. Our golden doodle is lost. She's pretty. She's kind of, fidgety and can be a little bit nervous. But here's our phone number. Please call if you find her, because our kids are really, really upset. Good morning, everybody. This was a text from my friend Ben, who said, I've always been fascinated with your business, Kevin. Tell me the truth. Is today better because they lost 31-0 rather than if they lost 17-10? Yeah, it probably is. For this business, when there's a lot of emotion and anger, it's probably better than if it'd been, just a middling sort of benign loss. But yesterday was anything but that. It was, for my money, it was the worst loss of the year. And there are several to choose from. But that was the worst of the season because of the opponent that they were facing. An opponent that literally was impotent offensively coming in. I want to begin with three things, and then got a little bit of an overview here. Then we'll get to my game take, which will include literally almost a play-by-play dissection of Jaden's game, albeit without true film breakdown knowledge. I didn't even have the all 22 available. It wasn't up yet. But some thoughts on his game, which I thought there was some good, there was some bad, there was some really good, and there was some really bad. The good news is that he's not seriously injured. So that is something that I think is good news. All right. So number one, for those of you that don't know and probably have no idea what I'm talking about, I don't, tend to obsess or just live in this little bubble that we're all in. I realize that many of you are not paying attention to social media, but because I got so many responses, including a response from somebody who was really upset about me saying what I said on Twitter yesterday. Let me be clear. I tweeted after the game. Let me clear my throat. I tweeted after the game, this was just slightly less embarrassing than the Detroit loss, but more embarrassing than the Seattle and Dallas losses, but close. Horrendous season. Fire everybody! ! No, I don't want everybody fired. That was tongue-in-cheek. That was sarcasm. That was a prediction of what was coming on social media and today. I don't know much, but I know this fan base, and I know many are going to be screaming, fire everybody. No, I don't want anybody fired. Most of you know that I was kidding about that, but social media is tough. It's probably my fault for not, putting an emoji with like a laughing emoji or a winking emoji or something like that. No, I am absolutely dead set against any big changes other than the defensive coordinator. They've got to go hire a defensive coordinator, and it can't be Quinn. Can't be Quinn. There are too many Shanahan-style offenses in this league, and he can't defend any of them. So they've got to find somebody in that spot. And then from an offensive coordinator standpoint, I wouldn't be crushed if they lost Cliff to a job or something, but I'm not calling for it. In fact, I like Cliff. I thought it was a bad day for Cliff yesterday, personally, and I'll get to that. But no, number one here to open up, for any of you, and it's probably a small percentage of you that live on social media that saw me tweet out fire everybody as part of a longer tweet, it was tongue placed firmly in cheek. I don't want anybody fired. I've never been afraid to call for people to be fired, but this would be Snyder-esque after the season they had last year and then the season they're having this year and the reasons why. Number two, three quick things to open with. Number one, I don't want anybody fired. Number two, injuries are still by far and away the number one reason why they are in the midst of an 8-game losing skid, and they are 3-10, and they are officially eliminated from the postseason. Officially now, if you didn't know that already. So no playoff scenario talk the rest of the way. That is clearly the number one reason. You'll never change my mind. Actually, I think you're an idiot if you don't recognize that as the number one reason. But that leads to number three. Number three is this. Injuries don't explain everything. Injuries don't explain getting blown out as many times as they've gotten blown out this year. You know, really good coaches keep a team together in the face of terrible adversity, and they've had it this year in the form of injuries. And you keep your team competitive. And the last 2 weeks, it certainly was an indication that that's just what they were doing. Yesterday, though, was the season low. And it was alarming because they weren't injured on offense, although that was not the problem yesterday. I think most of you recognize that. That's down the list. It's on the list, but it's down the list. But yesterday was the season low because of who they were playing. It's one thing to basically walk in with half a team and get blown out by the Seahawks and the Lions. Now, the Lions game was pretty ugly to watch because it was legitimately like a 7-on-7. You know, it was scout team, as Steve Suter said. Detroit was basically, playing a real game against a scout team. That was pretty hard to watch, but at least it's the Lions, Seahawks. The Chiefs game was actually 7-7 at halftime. The Cowboy game was, a one-score game late in the first half, and, then Jaden got injured and the score got completely out of hand. They fought against Miami and Denver. And the Denver game, without question, you could argue was, in terms of the full team, the best game they played all year. Yesterday, though, was horrible. Injuries don't explain losing to that team 31-0. That team was completely helpless coming into this game on offense. Completely helpless. I know that the defense is playing with players that they didn't anticipate playing. I understand that. Like I said, emphasizing for the people that have a brain, injuries are the number one reason that they are 3-10. But it doesn't explain everything. That was a gutless performance on defense in particular. I mean, there just wasn't any fight. There wasn't any preparation. You played a quarterback that literally could not throw the football into the ocean in the middle of it in a boat. You were playing a team that scored 0 points last week, yes, against Seattle's defense, 6 points the week before, yes, against Green Bay's offense, but this was a team that was near the bottom in every offensive category in the NFL. This was the opportunity, as we discussed, to actually maybe have a real positive defensive game. Because this was the first team in a while you've played that is terrible on offense and has a quarterback issue. Got a lot of those last year, on the way to 12-5. Got a lot of those last year, but haven't really had any of those this year, right? In order, it was Justin Herbert, and then we played, obviously Caleb, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, the Seahawk offense with Darnold at the time and Najigba, the Lions, obviously, the Dolphins who, have team speed, the Broncos, probably the least of those teams offensively, and then the Vikings count 30 spaces to get to where they are offensively. And you gave up a 19-play, 98-yard drive that took 12 minutes and 1 second off the clock. So the third point here in the overarching 3 takeaways, not necessarily from the game, but from where they are right now. Number one, I don't want anybody fired. Number two, injuries are obviously still the number one reason for the season going awry. But number 3, injuries don't explain everything, especially that yesterday. Unacceptable, he said after the game. It wasn't acceptable, Dan Quinn said after the game. There are many ways to put yesterday's loss, but unacceptable is not a bad one. So I think, that sort of overall performance being the worst of the season, 7 days after he said, we lost, but we're not lost, is alarming. It's alarming as to where they are right now. Have they quit on Dan Quinn? They didn't last week, did they yesterday? Is he just the wrong guy to be the defensive overall overseer for this team? They're playing with a short deck. We understand that. That has a lot to do with it, but it doesn't explain last year. It doesn't even explain at times earlier this year when they did have some of their players on the field. See the Atlanta game as an example. So there's, something to keep an eye on the rest of the way. I don't think personally it'll deteriorate into anything big in terms of, warming up his seat. I don't think that's the case at all. Warming up Adam Peters' seat, I don't think that's the case at all. I hope it's not, because if it is, it means that we have another owner or ownership group that is incredibly impulsive and reactionary. This is an aberration season, in my belief. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to the Super Bowl next year. It doesn't mean they'll be in the playoffs next year. But for this kind of season to happen, a lot of things outside of your control have to happen. With that said, that was an embarrassing, borderline gutless performance on defense in particular. Look, the specific big takeaway from the game yesterday in terms of what happened in the game is that Jaden Daniels was not seriously hurt trying to run down Van Ginkel. You may have heard of him if you listen to the Friday show. Van Ginkel, number 43. Don't throw a screen in his direction. Don't throw a flat pass in his direction. That was my number 2 key to beating the Vikings on Friday. I had Jay Gruden on my podcast Friday afternoon. He said the same thing. First thing he said, know where Van Ginkel is. How did they not know where Van Ginkel was? Is that on the coordinator? Is it the quarterback who may have checked to that play? It looked like he did. But you don't throw. The guy did the same thing to us, remember, a few years ago when he was a Miami Dolphin at FedEx Field late in the season. Miserable season. Another one of them. Everybody in the league knows you do not throw screens in his direction. But Jaden chasing Van Ginkel down appeared to have injured his non-throwing elbow again. I've heard all the theories. I have no idea if that means he shouldn't have played to begin with, if that means, they shouldn't play him moving forward. I mean, I don't think it means any of that. I think he took a tough spill, and I think he also took a bit of a hit on that 12 men on the field play a little bit earlier in that drive. Remember, they only had 4 drives in the game with him in the game. But Quinn said afterwards that he could have returned to the game and implied, he's going to play if he's healthy enough to play, including this Sunday against the Giants. And that's what I want. I want him to be okay. And I want him to play Sunday. I have absolutely no remorse, no regret at all for wanting Jaden Daniels to play yesterday. Zero. So don't try to talk me out of it. He needs to play. He's in his second season. And, yesterday there was a bit of bubble wrap on him, in terms of designed runs, even zone runs. We didn't see any of them. The only runs we saw were scrambles. And in the goal line situation, we've seen them use him in the running game a lot. Did not. I mean, you can say that first and goal at the 4 may have been a zone read, but I don't really think it was. I think it was a straight handoff. That was the last one, by the way, of the half. Well, there was one more in the half. Interesting, at 8 yards per carry, you don't try to run the football anymore. What do I know? But I'm fine with the decision. And I was fine with the decision. I was fine with the decision in game to sit him if he was banged up. He went into the blue tent. At that point, it was 17-0. You had zero chance of getting off the field. At that point, it became very apparent that was a problem. And so Quinn, look, it's a bit conservative if he could have gone back in, bit conservative. But at 3-9 and you're not playing for anything, these are the situations where they have to protect him. And I think that's what Quinn had on his mind. Err on the side of being overly conservative. Yeah, it's 17-0. Game's probably over. Not definitely over, but probably over. We certainly don't have to win this game because we're not in playoff contention. Let's let him relax and, get him ready for Sunday against the Giants, hopefully. So, yeah, you're not going to change my mind. Those of you, and it was a very debated, topic. Should he or shouldn't he play? I was on the side, obviously, of he should play, and I remain on that side, assuming he is 100% healthy, of course. Hope he's good. Hope he's ready to bounce back next week against the Giants, which, by the way, just so everybody knows, Washington now sitting there in the NFC and the NFC standings. Just let's take the overall league standings. Washington's at 3-10. There are only 3 teams in the league currently worse than them: the Raiders, the Titans, and the Giants. The Giants are 2-11. Washington's 3-10. There were years where regime change imminent, quarterback need, I'd be rooting for us to play well and lose. I'm not there yet. I want them to play well and win. And then I want them to give Philadelphia and Dallas tough games. I don't think they're capable of it right now, honestly, because they're just so bad on defense. But just so you know, they are in the running right now for the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. If they were to lose out, I would bet you they'd have no worse than the 2nd or 3rd pick. I mean, the Raiders have the Eagles, Texans, and then Giants. So one of those teams is going to win that game. That Raiders-Giants game could be a huge game in the drafting process. The Titans yesterday got a win, their 2nd of the season. They still, play the Saints, and then at the end of the year they play the Jags. Who knows if the Jags will have anything to play for? So that's for some of you. It's not for me. Not now. I can wait until the finale. But that is for some of you. Yeah, I hope he's ready to go Sunday. I hope everybody else on offense is ready to go. Zach Ertz won't be. That was a real downer. I thought it was a bit of a cheap shot, too, a little bit of a dirty hit. We'll get into that when I get into the game take. But I can tell you this from talking to a couple of people, that locker room was somber for 2 reasons. One was the ass kicking, and the other was Zach Ertz. He's a popular player on that team, and it looks like he has a torn ACL. We'll see. It's not official, but Quinn suggested that in the post game. So, look, worst loss of the season by far for me. There could be others to come, and there are plenty to choose from. But the Minnesota team coming into this game offensively was literally incapable of doing anything well. I mean, I joked last week that it would be just like this defense to see J.J. McCarthy resurrect the early portion of his career with a great game. It happened. My game take next.
And again, a four-man rush. It's batted into the air. And Andrew Van Ginkel gets the pick. Chased by McLaurin and down inside the 30-yard line.
Look, the screen wasn't going to work anyway. I'll get into that here shortly. But that was head scratching. I mean, I'm not the only person that knew last week you don't throw screens, bubble screens, or flat passes anywhere near him. By the way, Brian, Max and Brian both reminded me that this now becomes must-watch Hard Knocks on HBO. Just for now, I don't know how much they're going to focus on our turmoil because it'll be probably more about the Eagles and Cowboys the rest of the way, but the next episode, I guess, will focus on the preparation for the next episode will be the post game of this, right?
It'll be because it ended with we lost, but we're not lost anymore.
Yeah, that's what it ended with.
Yeah, so it'll be this week and then probably a little, touching on the locker room at the end of the game. I'm sure there will be, shots of, because apparently it was the most quiet anyone's ever heard anything ever when a this team's going into the locker room, so I'm sure we'll get some of that.
Yeah, but, I'm telling you, I talked to a couple of people who just said the locker room was as somber as it's been all year. It was much more upbeat last week and even after Miami, but some of it too was the Ertz injury. I think that was part of it too, but a lot of it was also the fact that they were humiliated, truly emasculated defensively by a team that was, as I said, they were impotent coming in on offense. So that's where I'll start before I get to my game take specifically. Minnesota came into this game as one of the worst offensive teams in the league, and really, really bad recently. 6 points in their last two games. J.J. McCarthy hadn't figured anything out. He was back off of a concussion. But against our defense, it is the elixir. This is where you go. This is the getaway to get your life in order. The 31st ranked team on third down came in and didn't miss on third down in the first half, 5 for 5. They were 6 for 7 until they took their foot off the pedal, but they still made 2 fourth downs on 2 fourth down attempts. They had, as I mentioned, a 19-play, 98-yard, 12-minute, 1-second drive after Debo dropped the 4th and goal on Washington's first offensive drive. It was Minnesota's longest drive of this century. McCarthy had his best passer rating of his very young career, but the reason I even mention it is it wasn't even close. It was so far and away his best passer rating. Here it is. Hold on for 1 second. His passer rating yesterday, 129.2. His previous best was 98.5. So we're talking about a 31-point passer rating difference. His QBR yesterday was by far and away the best of the 8 games he started, or 7 games he started. 75.2, 50.6 was his best before. He had never thrown 3 touchdown passes in a game. He had never had anywhere near the completion percentage he had yesterday at 69.6. And it was his second highest passing yardage total of his very young career. And if that wasn't enough, the Vikings rushed for 162 yards at nearly 5 yards per carry, over 5 yards per carry for their running backs. Washington's defense yesterday was all-time bad for this year. All-time. Look, I don't know what we're going to do when this season is over. There's going to be some comparatives to previous defenses. God, we have not had good defense around here in forever. I mean, a couple of here and there years, but God, it's been the issue over and over again. Even with bad quarterbacks, it wasn't usually good enough. 2022's defense was pretty good. Yeah, it was a special kind of bad yesterday considering the opponent. I'll tell you, if we go anywhere in our off-season conversations before getting to you need 5 new defensive starters, you need a new defensive coordinator, and by the way, that defensive coordinator has to be able to defend the Shanahan-style offense. Okay, we've talked about this all year. We talked about Quinn having a difficult time in his career as a defensive coordinator and head coach with Shanahan-style offenses. Let's just take this year. Week 2 against the Packers, Matt LaFleur, 27 points. Week 4 against the Falcons, Zach Robinson, 34 points. Best offensive day of the year for the Falcons came against Washington. Clint Kubiak, Seattle, 38 points. Mike McDaniel, Miami. Look, they only scored 16 points. They were in the red zone 5 times in that game. And then yesterday, Kevin O'Connell, after literally not being able to score and having a quarterback that couldn't find his backside with both hands, moved the ball up and down the field and scored 31 points. So the defense is the focus in the offseason. I know that there are needs on offense too, but you can't be this bad on defense in the NFL and hope to win anything of note. Last year, they did it because they played a lot of bad offensive teams. Now, they didn't play a bad offensive team in the first round of the playoffs. That's for sure. But they gave up 31 points in that game, but they turned over Goff 5 times, 4 times, 5 times, whatever it was. 4 times. Was it 5 turnovers for Detroit in the playoff game or 4? That's going to nag at me. Just look it up for me. I think it was 5, actually. I think it was 5 turnovers. I don't know where else to start the offseason conversations. I know some of you are going to want to start with, we'll fire everybody first, and then that's not what's going to happen. It's not what should happen, but it's got to be a much better. I know this isn't the era of defensive football, although this year's proving differently right now, but yeah, they're miserable on defense, and I get it. I've been sitting here screaming about it all year. They're without their top 3 defensive ends, their top 2 corners. I get it. It doesn't explain everything. Got to find a coordinator that can scheme it up against what is pretty prevalent in today's game. A lot of Shanahan-style offenses because they can't check any of them. Look, the defense was not alone in its poor performance yesterday. The offense, I thought, looked completely bamboozled and frazzled and borderline unprepared for Brian Flores' pressures. Maybe that's Cliff. Maybe that's Jaden, who didn't execute pre-snap. Marcus Mariota didn't execute pre-snap. Maybe it's the center, Tyler Biotish. I don't have the answers to that. I'll concede that right now. But Minnesota blitzes. It's what they do. They also faux blitz. They show blitz, and you have to figure it out. It was one of the reasons I thought this opponent was a good test for the offense being back together for the first time this year and being healthy, because there was going to be a lot to figure out. Brian Flores and that defense is good. We talked about it. They're number 1 in blitz percentage. They're 3rd in hurry percentage. They're really top, 5 to 12 in a lot of defensive categories. You knew this was going to be a test going in, but God, they were not prepared. It didn't seem like. Didn't have a handle on either the rush that came or the rush that looked like it was coming. And then what are you doing when you're rushing 8 yards per carry with Rodriguez on the opening drive of the game? You're not even needing Jaden in the run game to produce 5 carries for 39 yards. That is just short of 8 yards per carry. And you're 1st and goal at the 4, and you run the football, and then you throw it 3 times. What are we doing? You're not going to use Jaden in the designed run or the zone run scheme. I don't think there was a plan for that. I mean, they only had the ball 4 times, so it's hard to know exactly what they would have gotten to eventually had they had the ball more. But I like Cliff. I was like, he ran the ball 1 more time that half. Now, there was something that they did at halftime to come out in the 3rd quarter differently that I'll give him some credit for. But how do you he had just run 15 yards from the 20 to the 4, or 19 to the 4, 2 yards to the 2. It can't hold up. And you go to a trick play that doesn't work. You go to another throw and then a 4th and goal throw. I mean, I guess if they had scored on one of those throws, there wouldn't have been a complaint. But That's what you risk. When you're running it at nearly 8 yards per carry and you decide not to run it anymore, you risk getting criticized for play calling. Yeah. Look, I'm a Cliff guy, but against that pass rush, I didn't think that they looked ready for it. And maybe they were, and maybe it's on the quarterback, maybe it's on the center, who knows? Maybe it was on a back not picking up a certain block. Maybe it was on Jaden thinking the pressure was coming and it wasn't, and panicking a little bit. I've got a couple of those plays. But when you're having success running the football, let's at least keep it as somewhat part of the attack. And he didn't until the third quarter. Get to that coming up as well. So, look, I am going to tell you about Jaden's game, almost play by play, but give you the good plays, the bad plays, the other plays. I won't bury the lead. It wasn't great, clearly, but it wasn't anywhere near the worst of yesterday. I do think that 4th and 3 interception down 14-0, and I do think it was a check. I could be wrong, but if you watch that play from the moment they come out of the huddle to everything that happens pre-snap, it looks like he checks to the screen. I don't know what the other call was, but you can't check to a screen when Van Ginkel's on the side that you're going to be throwing the screen. That tells me they weren't prepared for number 43. And that is disgraceful because he's one of the best, if not the best in the league at doing what he did on that play. He has the best anticipatory talent in the league. He is aggressive and just makes these plays all the time. Made one against us in 2023 with the Dolphins. So if Jaden checked to that screen to Van Ginkel's side on 4th and 3, horrible decision. But he had some really good plays in the game, too. All right, we'll get to my game take. What I liked, what I didn't like, and a lot more after this.
All right, less than happy Monday, everybody. It's a little tough for me to say, but the Commanders were smoked and shut out by the Minnesota Vikings, 31-0. Jaden Daniels left early after re-aggravating his elbow injury, and Dan Quinn's defense had no answers for number 9, J.J. McCarthy, or the Vikings' run game. But hey, the Caps got a win over the Columbus Blue Jackets last night. Logan Thompson was a perfect 39 saves on 39 shots. Goals from Alexi Protas and Jacob Chikrin helped lift the Caps over the Blue Jackets by a score of 2-0. Tonight, we got Monday Night Football on tap right here on the Team 980. The Eagles take on the Chargers. Philly looking to snap a 2-game losing skid, while the Chargers looking to hang on their playoff spot in the AFC wildcard. Kickoff will be at 8 p.m. Again, right here on the Team 980. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right, what I liked, didn't like in other observations, and I'll save Jaden for that because I did go through every play. Not, I'm not a film expert. I don't come on here and say, after looking at the film and breaking it down, but I do watch the All 22 as a fan, and you can see some things, and we've been taught a lot over the years by some really smart people. But the All 22 wasn't up, so there were things missing. But I did go through pretty much every single one of his plays on the 4 drives that he had. So let's get to the game take. The good. I thought there was some good. I think the running backs were good. I think Chris Rodriguez is a good back. I mean, 10 carries, 52 yards. I thought Bill ran well. He had 7 carries, 32 yards. So 17 for 84. That's, nearly, that's not bad. I mean, you would absolutely take that, and just under 5 yards a carry. What is that? 1784. Is that 4.9 something? 17, 30, 68. Yeah, 85 would be 5 yards per carry. So I think the running backs are good. Does that mean I don't think that I don't think running backs should be something they look for? No, I think they need explosion in the backfield, and I think they need explosion everywhere. But it's not going to be at the top of the priority list when you have everything you have in terms of need defensively. On the list of good also, look, I mean, this is a nod to, my God, what were you doing in the first half, not running the football after, you got it all the way down there to 1st and goal, and then in 2nd and goal, 3 throws, and then the next drive you're throwing it, and then the final drive of the first half. I understand they're under 2 minutes to go, but you had 2 timeouts and decent field position, and you're not running it at all. Don't even give consideration to running the football. And look, 2-minute drives don't typically involve a lot of runs. So, I think you have to emphasize just about this game offensively. They only had 3 possessions in the first half, 7 for the game. Jaden played on 4 of them, and Marcus played on 3 of them. Yes, part of that responsibility is on them to keep the ball, but they actually did. On their first 4 drives, they kept it on 2 drives for a long period of time, but came away with no points. And then at the end of the first half, they kept it. And then, the first half time expired after they were forced to punt after a couple of questionable plays. But in the second half, what I'm getting to here is they came out in heavy personnel, under center, and they started to run the football a little bit more. It was almost like, we can't deal with the pressures. We're a little bit confused on the pressures. And, oh, by the way, we're running the football well. So let's get under center and hand the ball off to Chris Rodriguez for 5 yards. Let's do it again and give it to him for 4. Let's give it to him again, even in shotgun, and watch him run for 5 yards. But heavy personnel on that first drive, I'm going to give, Cliff very minor kudos for at halftime saying maybe there's a different way to do it in the second half. Lastly, on the list, the long list, as you can tell, of things that were really good from the game. Do you know that the game, I didn't know this in the moment when I tweeted it out. The game was 2 hours, 39 minutes. It was the fastest game of the season in the NFL. So that was a good thing. Washington only ran 49 offensive plays. Minnesota only ran 61. That's close to normal, but considering the time of possession advantage that they had, which was nearly 10 minutes, it would have been more, but there was no urgency to run plays. And by the way, none for Washington at the end either in a blowout loss. But I guess if there's a good from yesterday, it's that it didn't last very long. It was over quickly. All right, so let's get to the list of bad. You start with the defense. I don't know where else to start because that was, I can't emphasize it enough. We talked about it last week. We talked a lot about it on Friday. This was a team offensively that just was the first one teed up for, a struggling defense that had at least shown some heart against Denver and against Miami. Finally, you're getting a team that doesn't do much well and is really trying to figure it out at quarterback. And you sucked against the run. You were worse against the pass. You were even worse than that on third downs. And then even worse than that in the red zone. Like you hit the top four things: stop the run, stop the pass, be good on third down, and be stout in the red zone. F's on all fronts, all of them. Minnesota had the best day for their young quarterback that they've had all season long. 16 of 23 highest completion percentage, 163 yards, second highest yardage total, 3 touchdowns, the highest for him, highest QBR, highest passer rating. And by the way, he holds it too long. Like you see one of his issues, he still holds it too long. And yet they still had the success. He got sacked 4 times. I think 2 of them were like legitimate sacks. Von Miller maybe had one of them. I forget who had the other. The others were him scrambling around and just not getting back to the line of scrimmage. But then you gave up nearly over 5 yards a carry to the running backs, Jones, Mason, and then Scott at the end. Aaron Jones, 14 for 76, 5.4 yards per carry. Chunk runs too, 14 yards, 18 yards. Jordan Mason, 11 carries, 52 yards, 12-yard run. Xavier Scott, the rookie from Maine, 3 carries, 15 yards. You can do that math. 5 yards a carry. He had a 10-yard run. Couldn't stop them from throwing it. Couldn't stop them from running it. On third down, they were 5 for 5 at halftime. Literally, the 31st ranked third down offense in the league was 5 for 5 against your sorry defense at halftime. 6 for 7 before it was 24-0 and they took their foot off the pedal a little bit. But then they went for some fourth downs and picked those up. They were 2 for 2 on fourth down. So defensively, run stopping, major problem. Pass, defense, horrific problem. Red zone bad, third down bad, 31 for a team that couldn't score the last 2 weeks. 6 points total for them in their previous 2 games against much better defensive teams. Understood. Seattle and Green Bay. God, Washington's pathetic. Here's something else about the defense. Minnesota ran 61 plays and had 25 first downs. That's hard to do. Not to mention the drive. One of the worst performances on a drive I've ever seen. 19 plays, 98 yards, 12 minutes, 1 second. You know, the interesting thing about that, the very first third down, it's 3rd and 6 from the 6-yard line, and they blitz Quan Martin, and he almost got McCarthy. And it could have been like a massive play early in the game. I mean, the way it played out, it probably wouldn't have been. Okay, but he missed him. He grabbed him, and McCarthy broke loose, and he scrambled for the first down. It was almost, it was close to a safety, I think. If not, it would have been, 4th down punting from their own 2-yard line. I actually thought it was a nicely timed blitz, but you got to be able to make the play. By the way, for, they bad against the run, bad against the pass, bad against third downs, bad in the red zone, but they made up for it by tackling horrifically the entire game. There was an Aaron Jones run where I think he broke 4 tackles on the run. Defense leads the list of bad. Next up, I've touched on this already. I like Cliff, and I think you can do a lot worse than Cliff. And Cliff proved last year that, with a bad defense and with not the greatest supporting cast, he could scheme it up. They were lethal at times offensively last year, top 5 offense in the league, and it's why they ended up winning all the games they won. And nearly made it to the Super Bowl last year. But, again, just like you have to, consider context, injuries everywhere, defense, offense. Yesterday, he had a healthy offense. I mean, Eckler not there, but he had a healthy offense yesterday. And they looked, I thought, not prepared for the Brian Flores blitz package and fake blitz packages. And then he didn't run the football when they were averaging 8 yards per carry in the first half. That's the easiest way to nullify a pass rush. That's the easiest way to make sure that if you're a little bit confused or your quarterback's confused or your center's confused, whoever it is, that's the easiest way to make sure that doesn't matter as much, is to run at 8 yards per clip, or 7.95 yards per clip, to be exact. Chris Rodriguez on the opening drive. I mean, come on, man. First and goal at the 4. 2-yard run, I'm pounding 36, at least on second down and third down. If we don't get it in there, fourth, maybe we throw. Maybe third we throw. But second, he's getting the ball again. They're gassed. That you could see it. They're totally gassed. You're in the midst of a long-ass opening drive to answer their opening drive touchdown. 15 plays, 83 yards, 8.5 minutes a clock. Really good plays, good conversions on that opening drive. It looks good. Looks really good. Until the offensive coordinator decides we're going to get tricky. We got 74 Coleman. He can run a really good flat route into the end zone. I'll have what I thought about Jaden's execution or lack thereof on that play coming up when I get to him. But yeah, Cliff is on the list of not good from this game. Turnovers, playing a clean game is imperative for this team right now. And they had a dropped touchdown pass on the 4th and goal. Debo should have caught that, okay? And then you had 3 turnovers, starting with the Van Ginkel, disaster. Look, I'm not even going to really knock Mariota. Mariota was fantastic last week. He's played well. He's had some head scratchers for sure, and there were more yesterday. But he comes in at down 17-0 with the team already not really, executing against pressures all that well. They had some good plays. I'm going to get to them. They had some really good plays. Jaden had some really good plays against pressure. But Mariota obviously was not the answer in relief either when Jaden got banged up. So turnovers terrible. But let me just be clear. To me, when you come in down 17-0 in that spot with a defense that has zero chance basically of getting off the field, that's a tough spot to be in for Marcus. He didn't play well, obviously, but he played great last Sunday night. Did I nail all of the – well, yeah, the other drop pass, crucial drop. And then the Ertz injury. I think that, look, Mariota, and I wrote it down right when it happened. I wrote in my notes, Mariota just got Ertz killed because that ball was just sailed. And I also thought it was a bit of a dirty hit. Feel badly for him. He is, because let's face it, at what, 36 years old? Is that what he is? 36? 35? That could be it. I doubt it's it, though. But the thing is, it's happening so late in the season. If it is indeed a torn ACL, he's not back until the middle of next year. He certainly misses all of camp and probably the first part of the season, early part of the season. Feel badly for Ertz. He's been a very nice pass-catching safety blanket for Jaden and Mariota. What else do I have on this list? That's it. A lot of bad. I've got the other list, things that weren't necessarily horrible or great, including Jaden's Day, which I will break down for you when we come back. And then it's your turn, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. We'll open up the phone lines. I know people are already on them, but probably 15 to 20 minutes away from starting calls. Ben will join us at 12. We'll go around the league. Wow, big injury in Indy. Incredible game in Baltimore. Unbelievable ending to the Denver Raiders game if you had Denver and the over. All-time great win/bad beat. We may wait until tomorrow on that one. We got our own team to focus on. I'll get to Jaden's Day when we return. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
kind of toll can, I guess these kinds of losses, all the injuries, what kind of toll can that take on a team mentally, emotionally?
It's a lot emotionally, I would say. Just because like last week they were, what else do I, where do we get over the hump? And I said, you keep working, you keep going. And so in some regards, tonight's harder because when you're that flat, did you leave it all on the table and you didn't fill the tank back up to go? And that's our jobs to find a way to go do that and like stand strong again. And so I just felt like we were fighting off our back foot. It felt like in all phases, just not aggressive enough, not downhill enough. And I'll give credit, like I said, Flo and Kev both, I thought called good games. And so, but it felt like that, not as aggressive as we needed to be in all phases.
Yeah, Flo is in Brian Flores. I think he definitely had the upper hand on Cliffy. That would be my take from afar. But again, like it could have been the quarterback, it could have been the center, there could have been a lot of things going on, but that doesn't explain going away from the run on 2nd and goal. And I think one of the things too, real quickly, because of this team's ineptness defensively all year, last year it was a similar thing. You can't play with your food on 2nd and goal and think, hey, let's try a couple of fun things. Like, it's got to be serious. Like, you have to score. Because if you don't, your defense likely is going to give up another one. Anyway. All right. Let's get to other observations. I've given you my good, my bad, and I'm going to put Jaden on the other list because I think he had one of those days that was, good, bad, some really good, and some really bad. Bottom line, though, overall, wasn't great. For sure. It's important to note, as I have already, that there were just 4 offensive drives with Jaden in the game. And on 2 of them, they drove it into the red zone after super long drives, conversions, etc. 36 total snaps. That's it. Jaden was in the game for 36 snaps, 4 offensive drives. Washington only had 3 more after that, 7 for the game. I mean, that's like really, really hard to do. It's really hard to have only 7 offensive drives in a football game. So for him, there was a real mix, in my opinion, of, the results being good, the results being bad, the results being some really good and some really bad. I think the one thing the offense in general didn't do a good job of, again, I'm beating a dead horse here, is I just don't think that they did a good job handling Minnesota's pressures, fake pressure and real pressures. Again, not sure whose fault that was. Brian Flores is one of the best, man. I mean, they completely shut down Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba last week in Seattle. They lost the game because they couldn't literally move the football, and Max Brosmer threw 4 interceptions. You knew, though, coming in, this is a Brian Flores defense. He's going to come after you. They're the number 1 blitz team in the league. They're the top 3 hurry team in the league. That's what he wants to do. He wants you to, be confused. And I thought they looked at times confused. They looked very confused after Jaden left the game, but the game was over at that point. I'm not putting that on anybody that was in the game at that point. But I thought they looked confused. And again, how do you fix that? Well, you got to be buttoned up. You got to know what you're doing. But how about just keep running the football? And then pass rush pressure and pass rush, pressure looks don't mean as much. All right. Let me start with Jaden's good plays. The second down, first drive, they're down 7-0. It's a second and 6th throw to Terry. It's on time. It looks good. No blitz pressure on that one. Good protection on that one. Good throw, good catch. Nice to have a receiver that runs the correct route and is open and created some separation on that play. There you're off to the races. You always think, on that first drive early in a game in particular, but I would guess play callers and offensive people tell you this about every drive. It's like, get that first down and then we can get into the rhythm, and for Washington, because they go quickly and they like to go no huddle, You just got to get that first down, and it comes on the second play from scrimmage, a 28-yard pass deep left to Terry McLaurin. That was a good throw, good protection, good result. On that opening drive, there's a 3rd and 2 scramble. I don't think he had much. Now, the All-22 may reveal something differently, but they didn't blitz on that. They dropped 7 into coverage, didn't look like he had a lot there, and Daniels makes a really good scramble for 2 yards to keep the drive moving. First down. Then remember, they get close to the red zone. They've got a holding penalty against Bates that pushes them back. And there's a 2nd and 19 versus the blitz. Here it comes, and it is immediate. And he makes a phenomenal move to avoid the sack and scramble for 6-7 yards to set up a 3rd and 14, 3rd and 13, because a sack at that point, it's 3rd and 25, and you're out of field goal range. So that was Jayden at his, pocket presence, extending play best. I mean, the pressure was immediate. I don't know whose fault it was that the pressure was immediate. It may have been his fault. Okay, I'm conceding that all along. He may have not done what he was supposed to do to get them into the right protections, to get them into the right plays versus what he was seeing. But he made a phenomenal play to get to 3rd and 14. And then on 3rd and 14, he actually checks. I say he checks. There was it appeared a lot of responsibility that Jayden had in the game, which you would imagine needs to be the case against a defense like Minnesota's, because you got to be able to check out of a bad play into a better play. And I thought that there were a lot of those opportunities. And this was the 3rd and 14, and he actually checks to Samuels on a screen. It's not a bubble, and the coverage was dropping, and Debo picks it up. He made a great run after catch. Really good block by Terry McLaurin on that play, by the way. So that was a good play. I actually think the next play was a pass call that he checked to a run, and Rodriguez ripped off a 15-yard run. I'm not sure. It could have been a check from pass to run or run on one side to run on the other. But there was a lot of communication pre-snap with Jayden throughout the game, and there was before that Chris Rodriguez 15-yard run from the 19 down to the 4. Yeah, and then on 1st and goal from the 2, that actually looked like a check. I don't think that was a zone read, by the way. Even though it was presented that way, I don't think it was that way. But I don't know what was called. Maybe that was the call. The 3rd and goal, when they threw it after the 2nd and goal attempt to Brandon Coleman, Ertz gets held on that play by Van Ginkel, interestingly enough, and it did not get called. It was a pretty blatant hold. Nobody's open. Jayden's got to extend, and throw it away to live to fight another down, and he did. I thought that was a decent play. The 4th and goal, look, it's a 4-man rush. They don't come after him. There's nothing open until Debo slips across that baseline in the end zone, and that ball was catchable. It's in his hands. He's got to catch the football. So that you certainly give Jayden credit for hanging in there, hanging in the pocket, and making a good throw. Let me just remind everybody about that goal-to-go situation. I don't know this for sure because the first run was a zone read look. I don't know if it was or wasn't. They weren't using Jayden on that opening drive or the 2nd or 3rd drive. Now, the 3rd drive, because it was 2 minutes, you weren't going to get that anyway, or the opening drive of the second half in designed runs or option runs. So it looks like that there was a conscious decision to, especially on some of the short yardage where Jayden's been money, including the goal line where they've used him over and over again in the run game. They didn't. So I don't know if that, it shouldn't have mattered with the way Rodriguez was running if you had just given him the ball, but just wanted to make that point. 3rd drive, end of half. There's a really good decision, a good, decisive, accurate 1st and 10 throw to Terry on the sideline. He had a couple of those where that ball was, he saw it, the ball was out, accurate. That was 6 yards to the sideline, set up a 2nd and 4. And then on that end of first half drive, the 3rd and 4, where he threw the ball away from the defender low, where only Terry could catch it, and Terry makes a really good grab. They move the chains there. That's a good play by quarterback and receiver. And then in the 3rd quarter, they had the 4th and 1 under center, and that's, a 3 tight end bunch with Bates, Sinnott, or Bates, Ertz, and Sinnott, although I think Yankoff may have been in the game. But there's like 3 tight ends bunched up, good play design. He's under center, play action, and that's where you see him at his best. I mean, that ball, his release is lightning quick, and it's right in Ertz's, midsection, catches it, move the chains, the drive continues. So I just ripped off 9 or 10, 11, plays that were good plays, that were Jaden plays. So it wasn't, all bad. Now here's the bad list. So, Drew Brees gave him credit on this play, and I went back and looked at it, and I did not think that it deserved credit. Who am I to argue with Drew Brees? But it's the 3rd drive, first half, 2-minute, 2nd and 4. It's after the quick out to Terry. And there's an all-out blitz. I don't think that they saw it. I don't think that they read it. And he unloads the ball in the general direction of Terry, but really dirts it to make sure that he doesn't get sacked or get called for a grounding. And Brees said that's really good awareness by Jaden Daniels to know where his out was. It's an all-out blitz, and Ertz knows it because he does the thing that they did last year all the time and even earlier this year against all-out pressure. Ertz goes 2 yards, 3 yards, turns around, and he's wide open. I think that's where Jaden's supposed to throw the football. Now, maybe his vision, but with the all-out quick pressure, doesn't allow him to see Ertz. But I would have thought that's where the hot is on an all-out pressure. But he threw to Terry, and he does avoid the sack. He does avoid the grounding. But I think Ertz on that 2nd and 4 is open for not only a catch, but a turnaround and maybe for Ertz some yak. Another bad play for Jaden. 3rd drive, end of half, 2-minute drive, 2nd and 10. Minnesota shows blitz, and I think he thinks it's coming, and it doesn't come, and he quickly checks it down to Debo for a 1-yard loss. Now, what I didn't like about that play is he looked fidgety. He looked a little bit, rushed and confused in the pocket. Now, the play before was the 1st and 10. They were going hurry up, 2-minute, and he got all out blitzed, and he unloaded it to Terry, left sideline over his head. Good throwaway, actually. And I think he got confused. I think he thought they were coming again, but they were not coming again. And there was a pocket there. And he quickly, checked to Debo for a 1-yard loss. So I didn't like that play. 3rd quarter, 3rd and 6, 4-man rush. All right, they fake the blitz. They're not coming. And the last 3 I'm going to give you are I think the 3 worst plays for Jaden, in my opinion. The 3rd and 6, 4-man rush, there's a pocket, and he leaves early. Now, I can't tell if anybody was open or not, or if anybody was going to come open had he hung in there. But there was actually a clean pocket. It's the play on 3rd and 6 where he scrambled for 5 yards. It set up the 4th and 1 that they did convert. But on that play, A, I didn't like that he left the pocket so quickly. B, when he did leave the pocket, there is an opportunity for a really wonderful play off schedule. Debo's man comes up to stop Jaden, who looks like he's intent on scrambling. And before he gets to the line of scrimmage, if he had kept his eyes up, there's an easy throw to Debo for a big play. Instead, he kept it. He did get 5 yards, and he got close to the sticks, and it set up a 4th and 1. But I didn't like the fact that he left the pocket early, and then he missed an off-schedule opportunity for a big play to Debo. The last 2 here, 3rd quarter, 3rd and 3. This is the play before the Van Ginkel pick. Looks like pressure again. I think they get fooled. It's not pressure. And he misses Noah Brown. It was probably his worst throw of the day because he was actually not super off throwing it. I'm not saying he was, super sharp, but he, we saw like in week 1, he was high on balls. He missed some. This is one he misses to Noah Brown. Now, I don't even know if it gets the first down on 3rd and 3, but it's a bad throw. I think it's a bad throw. I guess it could have been a bad route, but I think it's a bad throw. I don't know that he would have gotten the first down. I'm not sure if that was the read, but Terry sits down and is wide open for an easy first down. And by the way, some yards after catch. So to me, that was the second worst play for him, which was the play before the next play, which was the 4th and 3 on the opening drive of the second half. Again, I've talked about this, but I could be wrong. I concede right now that there are certain things I'm assuming based on his communication pre-snap and signals that he's giving to receivers that he's checking 2 plays or he's adjusting a play. It looked like he did that before that 4th and 3. And all I can say is what I said here on Friday. It was one of my keys. Don't throw a bubble screen or a flat pass to wherever Van Ginkel is. He's just too good, and you're going to pay if you do that. And they paid. I think it's on him. I'm not sure if that's the play that was called, and it wasn't a check. Well, then he shouldn't have thrown it. He should have tried to make something happen. By the way, on that play, it doesn't work anyway. Terry would have gotten blown up because Ertz missed the block on the bubble. That's always, I say he missed it. The defender made a good play too. And then Van Ginkel makes a great play, which he's done throughout his career. Checking to a bubble screen on 4th and 3 to his side. I mean, I knew you shouldn't do that. They need to know that. He needs to know that. So there were a few other plays real quickly that I couldn't really decipher if they were good plays for Jaden or bad plays for Jaden. The 2nd and goal on the opening drive, that the tricky number to the tackle eligible Coleman, it does look like Coleman's open. It also looks like if Jaden gets rid of it quickly, it's a touchdown. But Eric Wilson is immediately in his face, and I think that Jaden can't see it because Eric Wilson's immediately in his face. So I don't know if that's, they're going to look at that and say, Jaden, the ball needed to be out before Wilson got in your face. It's pretty instantaneous. Or you've got to, you got to work around him and still try to make the throw. There was a 3rd and 5 on their second drive. Connerly Jr. gets beat badly right from the jump, and Jaden scrambles. This was when he scrambled on 3rd and 5, and he came up 2 yards short. He jumped out of bounds, sort of jumped sideways out of bounds. That's the mode he was in yesterday, people. He was in, and he was told, we're not going to run designed runs. We're not going to run a lot of zone reads. I mean, maybe they would have gotten to him had they had the ball more. Again, 4 drives. But he's got a chance, and I think Jaden this year or earlier this year tries to get the first down, but he jumps out of bounds because Harrison Smith is coming up to stop him, and he's short of the first down, and they punt. 3rd and 1 first drive of the 3rd quarter when Minnesota had 12 men on the field. It's a bad play by Jaden. What I can't figure out is, did he know that there were 12 men on the field? If he knew there were 12 men on the field, because it was kind of obvious to all of us watching that last defender didn't get off the field when the ball was snapped. There was immediate pressure again, and then he tries to wind up and he gets hit, fumbles, and Minnesota recovers it. The reason it's not a bad play for me is I think maybe he's trying to take a shot if he saw that it was flagged and 12 men on the field. But I also watched the play closely, and it doesn't seem like he saw it. I don't know. And then there was a play in the 3rd quarter on the one drive that he played in where Debo's not expecting the quick screen, and he just throws it like they weren't on the same page. For me, the grade, C minus. Again, only 4 drives, and yes, they moved the ball twice into the red zone, but they did not score points. That's the goal. And they didn't score on his last drive because he appeared to check to a bubble screen where 43 was, Van Ginkel. So, there were some good plays. There were some very good plays. There were some bad plays. There were some very bad plays. And there were, some plays that were hard to figure out, honestly. I mean, look, it wasn't a lot of football, 4 drives, but you can't give him any more than a CC minus because of the bad plays. The last one being devastating. Some of it's on Cliff, some of it's on Jaden, some of it may be on the center. I don't know, but he had a full supporting cast yesterday, and because of it, they looked okay on 2 long drives. 15 plays, 83 yards, 12 plays, that one last 8.5 minutes, the first drive, second half, last 6 minutes, 44 seconds. But you got to score points in the NFL. One other quick overall observation from the game. Noah Brown drew another defensive pass interference penalty, and it was on Fabian Moreau. Remember him? But Noah Brown led the league last year in drawing defensive pass interference penalties. It seems to be his number one talent. All right, your chance next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, team980.com. Don't forget, you can watch the show on our Team 980 YouTube channel. If you do watch the show on our Team 980 YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button for us and hit the like button. All right, your calls, your chance, 301-230-0980. Let me mention that Window Nation has extended their year-end sale until the end of the year. 50% off all windows and window styles. You can take advantage of that between now and the end of this month. 50% off everything, half price on everything. Plus, if you choose to finance your purchase, how about 0% interest for 5 years until the year 2030? Window Nation gets it right. They replace your older windows with new, efficient, well-insulated, newer windows, high-quality windows. They measure 3 times to ensure your windows fit perfectly. Keeps your home comfortable all year long. We got a cold start to December, man. Looks like it'll continue. Their installation crews finish the job in a day or less. They'll come out and give you an estimate free of charge in an hour or less. Many people have mentioned to me that the benefit of that was just to find out which windows actually needed to be replaced. So if you've been thinking about upgrading windows, changing out your older windows for newer ones so that your energy bills are less than what they've been and your home looks nicer, takes an hour or less to find out which windows actually need to be replaced. So call Window Nation at 866-90Nation or head to windownation.com. You're working with a company that has over 45,000 5-star reviews. They've installed over 3 million windows across the country. Their windows come with a lifetime warranty, and they were recently ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installation companies in America. You can trust Window Nation for high quality, affordable windows. Hurry, the sale ends soon. Don't wait to put an end to your window problems. Schedule a fast, free estimate now at windownation.com. All right, phone lines are lit. Let's get to them. Let's start with Joe. Joe's been on hold for a while. Joe, kick it off for us.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on?
What's up, Joe?
Well, believe it or not, I do have one like, but it's a small like. The rest is negative. So the like is Von Miller has quietly had a great season. I mean, Kevin, I think you mentioned that when we signed him right before on training camp, that as long as he gets 6 or 7 sacks, because we're not asking him to do much, that's a positive sign. And he got his 6th sack yesterday. I mean, he's quietly had the season.
He did. I had no idea. Yeah. I would not say without. I'm not. My immediate reaction to you saying Von Miller's had a very good season is that sounds insane. I don't know that anybody's had a good season defensively.
But it's better than what we expected.
It is. I think what we expected was, or what we were hoping for, was improved against the run, and then maybe Von Miller can come in on 3rd and longs and be an issue. There haven't been enough 3rd and longs this year with the game actually in doubt. So, look, I think there have been too many of these games this year, and this is what I led with today. It's like injuries explain most of it, but it doesn't explain yesterday. The blowouts, the non-competitive. They've been now in 5 games this year that essentially have been non-competitive football games. In a league that basically every game comes down to the 4th quarter, Washington's essentially been out of 5 football games in the 4th quarter. So not the best opportunities for Von Miller to shine this year. But go ahead. What else you got, Joe?
So I didn't like Cliff Kingsbury. Listen, I'm not saying Cliff is going to be gone anytime soon, but my God, why on the first possession you are running the ball effectively, you get down to the 1-yard line, and you abandon it, and then afterwards, it changed the game completely after that 4th down drop by Debo. We didn't run the ball effectively after that. I mean, why?
Well, we didn't try to run the football really after that until the 3rd quarter, and they came out heavy personnel under center and ran it a little bit. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm sorry, but the dude's at 8 yards per pop, and he just ran it down to the 4, ran it down to the 2, and I'm going to throw it 3 times? No, thank you.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, Kevin. I mean, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, that one, I bet you even Cliff's like, what was I thinking? Well, I guess if, one of those pass plays works, it's like, okay, we don't talk as much about it. But right when, no. Again, let me just point out, I think Jaden wasn't a part of the run game, wasn't part of the, again, not a lot to judge on 4 drives, but he was not really a zone read, option guy. Although the first run on 1st and goal at the 4 looked like it a little bit, but I don't know. He gave it pretty quickly. And other than a scrambler, there were no designed runs, which, by the way, we talked about. Like, if you're going to protect him, pull him out of games that are over, where maybe he's a little bit banged up, and even a little bit shell-shocked after the Van Ginkel play. And let's not run quarterback power, quarterback counter, because they've run a lot of those quarterback, designed runs in the goal to goes. They didn't yesterday. Let's go to Mark in Largo. Mark, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Kevin?
Good, Mark.
I think on the bad, they just weren't prepared. Period, and completely. And I look, there's been a couple of games where Cliff, if he sticks with the running game, I think they could win it. I think if he stuck with the running game a little more against Miami, I think they win the game. Maybe a little more against, and other things. But yesterday, I think if you ran the football, you clearly could win this game, or at least be in it. It's more of a competitive game if you run the football. And yeah, I do think Cliff is going to go, because I think Cliff is disgusted with he doesn't have the talent like he had last year, this year compared to he had last year. So I do think Cliff is going to be gone, which goes to what I said to you last week. Kevin Stefanski and Jim Schwartz coming here next year, which I actually think would be the best move for the team, because you got to get some coaches that are comparable to what you can get. And the other thing is, you can't be flirting with trying to get new wave offensive coordinators and new wave defensive coordinators when next year is going to be a put up or shut up year for everyone. Everyone. Because this is Jaden's 3rd year after next year. So next year you have to decide, okay, we're going to go forward with this guy. We give him a 5th year, we're going to go forward with this guy. That's why I say I agree with you when people sit up here and say, don't play him. No, you need to play him. You need to play him out. And if he can come back, play. Because if he plays and they beat the Giants and they do well and they do a split with Philadelphia, you beat the Cowboys, you do and stuff like that, I'm fine with that. Maybe, Kevin, I was thinking about this morning, maybe a team like Pittsburgh, who wins the division, they want to come up in the draft, trade with you, give them, even though you hate DK Metcalf, I tell you what, DK Metcalf will help us out.
Who said I hate
DK Metcalf and another first rounder.
You just make stuff up all the time. When have I ever said I hate DK Metcalf?
No, that wasn't you. No, that was Craig Hoffman. He wasn't a big DK Metcalf. My fault. I'm sorry.
It's not that I'm like the massive fan of DK Metcalf, but I've never said it. You do this all the time. What else? Make one more point. I'm not. By the way, I'm with you. You know where I stand on Jaden playing, assuming health, the rest of the way. In terms of winning games the rest of the way, it's possible they could win Sunday. They're a 2.5-point underdog against the Giants on Sunday. It's possible they could. The problem is that they can't stop a cold. So you're gonna be in some games that are gonna get sideways. Especially if you're ill-prepared like they were yesterday, which I also agree with.
That's true, Kevin. They can't stop a cold, but here's the bigger issue. Cliff knows that. This is why Rodriguez under any other offense would have 1,500 yards right now.
Well, I don't know about 1,500.
Under any other offense would have 1,500 yards, or at least 1,100 yards. Okay. They don't run the ball consistently, and they should.
They should have yesterday.
Okay. Outside of Scary Terry, you need to play Treylon Burks more because, look, I know everybody talks about Noah Brown. Noah Brown needs to go on to a corner at the end of the year.
He's going to.
The future is Treylon Burks. Let's keep it 100. Yeah. Keep it a buck right there. And I agree with they need to play him more and let Noah go someplace else. And let Debo go too, man. Debo's been a disappointment. I'm sorry. Every time I see Debo, he's not good in space. He catches the ball and immediately falls down, or he can't make a catch. Terry would have made that catch on that 4th down play. Terry would have made that catch on that 4th down play.
Yeah, those are the catches he makes, no doubt. Hey, Mark, other than the Craig Hoffman, DK Metcalf slip up, solid call. Well done. Let's go to Little in Bowie. Little, go ahead.
Kevin, Coach, thank you for taking my call.
What's
Shout
up,
out to Man Mac.
Yep.
Hey, Kevin, y'all seem like this is the first time y'all, Mr. Egotistical did this many times.
What?
Inside,
I missed that. It's the first time we've been what?
No, I'm just act like this is the first time Kingsbury and got him down there and then decided not to cuff the run. He go ghost. He go soft like a wet marshmallow. This ain't the first time Kevin man been doing it all season.
Yeah, we've talked about it when they haven't run it enough. Right.
Yeah. Hey man, look, when he was up under the center, they got 6.7 yards a carry. Hey man, look, the way I look at it, man, and Kevin is where's the counter trade? We saw the counter trade twice in the California game.
They run a lot of counter and they run it from shotgun a lot. But yeah, I like them under center. I like them under center more. I have no problem with that.
Hey, look, if I'm the owner, this is what I'm doing. I'm sitting Kingsbury. I'm sitting them down at the table, and I'm looking. Look, DQ, we need you as a consultant. You got to take it. He don't have no cahoots to make changes. We don't have no kind of cahoots on defense to evaluate in the locker room to make changes. Who in the hell plays a quarterback 10, 15 yards off the ball when it's 3rd and 8? Where you see that at? Nowhere in the NFL.
Well,
this whole staff.
Yeah, I think
man.
part of that is they have limited to a certain extent the explosives, but you're giving up a lot of the under stuff. Yeah, for sure.
But around the league is that they playing 7-on-7.
Yeah, well, they were against Detroit. Yeah. All right, Little. Good call, man. As always, let's go to Sean in D.C. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin. I got a question for you.
Okay.
So let's do a hypothetical here. So say they lose out, right? So 4 more division games lost, 12-game losing skid. So at that point, not would you clean house, but would it be reasonable to clean house? Just a yes or no.
No.
Okay. So
no and no. No, I wouldn't
answer.
Clean house, and it would not be reasonable to clean house.
Got it. I kind of figured that would be the answer. So,
well, I mean, let me tell you why. Because again, the number one reason for the disaster season is something out of the control of Quinn and Peters, etc. It doesn't explain everything, like I've emphasized today, especially yesterday. Yesterday was a season low, and there could be more to come. But last year absolutely buys everybody 2026 at a minimum.
Okay.
2026.
Yeah. Got it. So I kind of figured that would be your answer. And just, I mean, I've been listening to you for 20 years now, called in many times. We've met a couple of times. So here's the deal. A couple of months ago, when you were diagnosing people with having PTSD or Stockholm syndrome, because we were 3 and 6.
Right.
That was what you did. I kind of have a diagnosis for you.
Okay.
I think you might be suffering from at least a moderate case of Larry Michael-itis. Because
Sean,
I don't think you can objectively, Kevin, and this is a blanket statement. All right, a couple of things.
What do I take for that? Do I take something for that?
2024 anymore.
What do I take for that? Drink heavily?
Talk to Richard Walker. Richard Walker was basically saying the same thing yesterday. Structural changes.
Yeah, here we go with the Kevin is a homer. For years, it's been Kevin's Mr. Negative.
No. Here's what No. Let me just make my case real quick. So when you lose 12 games in the NFL, you are totally justified in getting rid of the coach. The comps that you're getting when you lose 12 in a row, that's Hugh Jackson territory. Okay? That's always a reasonable option. So you say that it might be impulsive to get rid of Peters and Quinn. And just so you know, I don't think we should get rid of Adam Peters. I definitely think it's reasonable to get rid of Dan Quinn when you lose 12 games in a row. This is worse than anything that Dan Snyder came up with. You can totally make the case. If you say this is the worst game of the season, that could have absolutely been the worst game of the century, Kevin.
It was bad. Make a case. It was bad, but that's a show for the offseason to rank the worst of the century, because we had the end of the 2023 season. It was one of the worst after the worst during that whole closing stretch. Same in 2019. Yeah.
No doubt. So, I mean, but I'm just saying, Dan Quinn, is there going to be a line out the door to hire him if we fire this guy? I mean, is this guy really going to?
Let me ask you a question: should Minnesota fire Kevin O'Connell this year?
I mean, no.
I mean, by your logic,
do,
with the way things
him.
have gone, and they're the quarterback not, although yesterday was a big day. Yeah, I guess when you lose out and it's ugly, and there's a feeling if we get to that, because you're making, you're presuming that it's going to be 12 straight to end the season.
Correct.
And you might be right. We'll see. They're going to play these last 4 anyway. But if you get it, but there's context to that, right? Like if he loses the team completely, and he loses his coaching staff, and you're concerned that after this season, players aren't going to want to come play here because they were lined up to play here, or the coaches were. Players love it here. Von Miller says he wants to come back and play again for Dan Quinn.
Yeah. Well,
then maybe it's justifiable to consider it. But other than that, I just can't see, given the context of this season, how you could possibly be that impulsive and be successful.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I just view that as totally unreasonable. I just don't think that is. I just don't think, and I would just say this. I think one of the reasons that you've developed this syndrome is you deal with a team on a daily basis, obviously more than we do. So I think you're dealing with competition. I mean, maybe not a daily basis, but a weekly basis.
No,
you're probably dealing with.
No, I don't. I'm not a reporter. I'm not out there at all, actually.
I know.
Well, if you know, why'd you say it otherwise? If we're going to have a conversation,
when's the last time
you've diagnosed me as having Larry Michael-itis, which is hysterical because overwhelmingly I've been called Mr. Negative, hate the team for the last 6 or 7 years until last year, when they were good and there was reason to be justifiably optimistic about them. So you're giving me the reasons for the diagnosis, and the first reason is totally inaccurate. So what's your next reason?
I mean, that's the biggest one because it's not objective. It's no longer, you can't look at this product
other than being a fan of this team, and I don't know if you are or aren't, which of course can skew some level of objectivity. There's no other reason for me not to be objective. None. There's no relationship that I have. There's no trying to protect anybody. There's certainly no homeritis, as you're accusing me of. This is a perfectly your suggestion that everything be on the table if they lose out. I'm not going to say it's completely nuts because I think there's context to it that could make it justifiable. But my position that after last year and a season like this year, and the reason number one for the season this year, my position is justifiable.
I mean, I suppose it doesn't sway me at all.
Clearly,
I think we have an average coaching staff, and if you don't, I think what we're going to look back.
Well, wait a minute. You want to fire an average coaching staff after this season? What were they last year? How did you feel about Quinn after last year?
Really good. Really good.
Okay. So you're very reactionary. You felt great last year. You feel
12 wins, 12 losses in a row.
And then this year with the most injured team in terms of contributors, top line contributors in the league, you want to move on from it. Yep. That's reactionary. That's not big picture. That's impulsive.
Peters, I think, no, that's not true at all. Peters should stay. I would have no problem with Quinn going. I think Clint Kubiak would be better. Is that crazy? Is that nuts? Doesn't sound nuts.
Honestly, that's the least nuts thing you've said. Because if they ended up making a change at offensive coordinator because they wanted to go in a different style, moving forward offensively, and it was going to be more Shanahan style, more under center, more play action, more bootleg. We know what that is, more based on run first, which, by the way, I think Jaden would be great in that kind of a system. If Quinn made that decision, or the powers that be made that decision, that would be the least nuts thing to happen. But again, your diagnosis has no reasons for it that are accurate. You had one reason for it, and you're over. So I'll give you one last chance to come up with a second reason. And by the way, what I should take to get rid of it.
I told you. Listen, I don't know.
I know, but it's wrong.
I don't take your insurance. I don't take your insurance necessarily. I mean, I'm just saying.
Get out of here.
I'm just saying,
That's a good call, though. Thanks, Sean. Let's go to John in Falls Church. Let's go and move on from Sean. Larry Michaelitis. I like that, though. It's funny, but his only reason is I'm not objective because I'm too close. Well, I'm not close at all with anybody out there. Are there people that listen to this show that I talk to occasionally and provide me with tidbits here and there? Yes, but there is absolutely no relationship that I am beholden to ever. And I think most of you who have listened to me for years know that. John in Falls Church, go ahead.
Yeah, what an exhausting hour and a half. In a good way. I called originally to talk about the running game, and you, for the first hour of your show, talked about it exhaustively. But this team is built, like with draft picks, with draft capital, with the defensive coach, to run the ball. And somehow like even when you fail to run the ball into the end zone at the 1 yard line, it's still a victory for your defense because they get to come back on the field and pin the other team back on the goal line.
Yeah,
and
I would have liked to have seen at least one more run. Sure.
And like this is a frustrating year, and I can't believe that. I know they don't have the perfect running back. They don't have the best running back in the league, but who is the best running back in the league these days?
Well, there's several of them,
Not
actually.
Derrick Henry. Well,
yeah, Jonathan Taylor's pretty good. Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs are pretty good. There's some really good running backs. We've really seen the resurgence of running backs over the last couple of years. James Cook.
But not in a goal line situation necessarily. But I feel like this team, like in a given week, they're not good enough to out scheme everyone or, out defense anyone. So why don't they just run the ball with all this offensive line capital they put into it?
Yeah. Yesterday against that team and their pressures in particular, which they did not deal with very well, whether they were real or not real pressures, running the ball would have been the thing that would have made that really completely a non-issue for them. John, thanks for the call. Those on hold, stay there. We'll get to your calls next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right, we're going to take Ben at 12:25. I want to give you guys a chance to get your calls in. Let's go to Aveen. Aveen, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. You've talked about injuries, and I think injuries explain a lot on offense, why this offense isn't an elite unit and why, Jaden hasn't played like a top 5 quarterback. I mean, the last time Jaden played in consecutive games and had one of his top 3 receivers healthy was the Chicago game. And you can argue that Debo wasn't even healthy then.
Right.
But I'm not sure it explains much about the defense injuries. The truth is we lost one good player to injury this season, Dorrance Armstrong, and the defense still stunk when he was playing healthy. So I don't think injuries explain much.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I've said all along that even if you stayed healthy on defense, we've seen enough to know that it would not have been a very good defense.
Right.
Agreed.
So with that being said, I think we have a big enough sample size. This is 2 seasons now. I was totally patient saying, a lot of new head coaches on their side of the ball, they need 2 full off seasons for the defense or the offense to start looking like it is in their vision. And, this is kind of a head turning game when you're playing against one of the worst offenses and they have an amazing game against you. And I feel comfortable in saying, right now, Dan Quinn doesn't really have much of a clue when it comes to coaching defense in the current NFL. And this front office doesn't have much of a clue when it comes to building a defense in the current NFL. Like, Kevin, what does it say to you that by the end of year 2 of Dan Quinn, you're asking for a new defensive coordinator who can scheme up to match with the current NFL? That's the job of the head coach. That's the job of the head coach. And the reason we hired Dan Quinn was because he had been a really successful coordinator.
Defensive
guy,
yes.
The head coach has a lot of input in scheming.
By the way, let me interrupt you. I'm going to let you finish. Don't cut Aveen off. I always enjoy Aveen's calls. That's not the reason they hired him. They hired him because he's a tremendous leader. And that's what they needed more than anything else coming off the Snyder years. They needed to change the culture. That's why they hired him. They also thought he was a very good football coach, and they knew they would attract other good coaches. But the defensive coordinator and the defensive situation for now, what is it, 20, what have we played, 13 games, 33 games, has been, as he said at the end of the game yesterday, unacceptable. And that's got to change. They've got to fix that. From Peters to the staff. Continue.
It hasn't been bad. It's been embarrassing. I mean, they routinely get embarrassed last year and this year. And, I agree with you. The head coach is a lot more than just, a schemer and all that. But, for all the talk about the Commander's standard and the culture change, it seems to have only really worked on one side of the ball. And if we're being honest, if we're looking at last year, who deserves credit for that 14-win season going to the NFC Championship game? Sure, Quinn gets some of that, but if we're doing a pie chart, it was Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury who pretty much carried that team to the NFC Championship game in spite of the defense.
Yes.
I've lost. I think Quinn has lost credibility to me, and it just says a lot that we're asking.
Well, what's your solution? Would you do something about it if you were in charge?
I mean, I'm in the minority in this. I would let him go after this season. I get it's crazy after 14 wins, but I credit that to Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. I would probably promote Cliff Kingsbury, and I'd be looking for a new defensive coordinator who can.
You promote Cliff Kingsbury to head coach?
Yeah, and I would. Okay. I would look for a defensive coordinator. I get somebody from the Rams staff, the Seahawks staff, whoever, somebody who can coordinate in the modern NFL. Because if you're saying after year 2, we need a new scheme, a new coach with a new scheme, that just speaks so poorly on Dan Quinn.
Yeah. So my answer, what my answer is going to be, big picture. But one of the things I would focus on is if you end up doing that, you are now back. You're in the Raiders, Browns, used to be Redskins situation where you are reacting so impulsively. And I don't think it's with great forward vision personally. I think, and by the way, even if it is, let's just say there's a real belief in that building that Quinn can't do it. You are taking great risk of looking like the Redskins of old because anybody with a brain knows why they're 3-10. Now, it doesn't mean they'd be 10-3 if they weren't injured and an injured football team. We've already gone through that, but it wouldn't look like it's looked. So to basically fire him after a season in which the number one reason for the disaster was out of his control, it looks really bad. And by the way, would play very badly, I believe, among players, agents, other coaches, etc. So I just wouldn't do it.
I'll just make this point. You know, the Eagles with Doug Peterson, I mean, he was fired after a couple years. John Fox with the Broncos, he was fired after a couple years. So there is some precedent of good organizations doing it, even when their coach took them to the Super Bowl.
A couple of years after the Super Bowl. All right. Doug Peterson would have never been fired if the next season after, winning the Super Bowl or getting to the Super Bowl, if all of a sudden his team was a shell of what it was before and they had a terrible season. He would have been given another opportunity.
True, that's fair, but his side of the ball was carrying a lot of the weight with the offense they were running, and Quinn's side has it. Kevin, can I end with one more point really fast?
Yeah.
I saw this headline from Barry Swerluga, and I think this has been a sentiment among a lot of our fan base, which his headline for his article he wrote in the Washington Post was that the truth is that nobody really wants to admit is that Jaden Daniels hasn't been that good when he's been healthy too. And I just think that's pretty dumb. I mean, that's stripping away so much context of the health of the rest of the offense. I mean, you got to give him some grace whenever he returns from injury to get acclimated again. But
first of all, I think a lot of people feel this way, and I would disagree with all of them. I mean, even yesterday, I had people calling me, telling me, "Oh my God, he is terrible." I'm like, "What game are you watching? He's not terrible. He wasn't good. I gave him a CC minus." But there is a lot of impulsivity when it comes to these big topics like coach, general manager, quarterback, and recency bias plays a lot into that. I didn't read Barry's column yet, but I don't. There's too much context around that for me to think that. Again, look, there are things yesterday he was confused. And I don't know if it was him or Cliff, but at times it did not look good with the way they handled the pressures and the faux pressures. It didn't.
Kevin, I'll end
I got to go real quickly.
Okay, the first throw he made, that's a 25-yard out route.
Yeah, of course. He made a lot of good plays. You heard me break it down. And I gave him 10 really good throws, good plays. And then there were some really bad ones, like checking to his screen where Van Ginkel was. I got to go. Everybody on hold, stay there. I see you there. We're going to do one more call segment, and then we'll get to Ben. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980. From Alec in Bethesda, Alec writes, "You love these days. Admit it." I don't love these days. I really don't. Last year was so much better. It was so much more fun. I've done these days. I've done hundreds of these days over the last 2 decades. They're not enjoyable, to be honest with you. I mean, I love that we as kind of a Skins community of fans get to share in all of this, you know, the good, the bad. There's just been so much more bad over the years. No, Alec, I don't love days like these. Somebody else, I read a tweet from the beginning. No, it was a text from my friend Ben, who asked me if days like this are better than if they had lost 17-10. I guess from an emotional output, it is. But remember what we ended up having towards the end of the Snyder era. We didn't have anger anymore. We didn't have the emotion. It was apathy. That's the worst to have. Ian's been on hold for a while. Ian, go ahead.
Well, I love these days because this is exciting to me. So on Friday,
of course it is.
Called in and we talked about. Say what?
Yeah, of course it is.
Kevin,
for you.
Do you have me?
I do.
Yeah. So
can you hear me?
On Friday. Yeah. Do you got me?
Yeah, I
Hello?
do. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay.
What's going on with Ian's phone line?
I think it's just a little bit of a delay where you guys are just interjecting.
We'll put him on hold and figure it out. Let's talk to Peter in Wilmington. Peter, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, love you. You know, are you there?
I'm here. Got it.
Okay. Hey, listen, I'm 100% with you. Firing Dan Quinn and anybody on this staff for what happened this year would be ridiculous. And the league would look at it like, just like you say, why would we want to go to Washington? They fired a good man right off the bat for having a bad season that he really had not a lot of control about. Not only that, if you look at this team, there are a lot of players that we need. We need 5 good players on defense and 1 more on offense. If I had to look
maybe more than 1
more
on offense, but yeah, 5 minimum on defense, it seems like.
Yeah, and listen, there are a lot of players that are on this team right now that would make a nice roster as a backup. They'd be good backups. There's a lot of players that would be good backup, period. So I don't know why they want to just blow this whole thing up right now and change the coach in the 3rd year. I mean, it just seems ridiculous with me. And, you know, we weren't as bad as we were at one point. We were 3 plays away from actually having a 6-6 record. So I don't know. It was bad yesterday.
That's a real Larry Michael way of looking at it. I don't even think I've pushed that narrative. They were certainly 1 botched handoff in the rain on a Monday night away from a 4-2 record, but 6-6. I mean, remember Cowboys? They got bombed in. Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions. Yeah, I don't know if I can go there, Peter.
Yeah, okay. Well, man, I saw 3 games that we were 1 play away. The Miami game, the Chicago game,
Denver, Chicago,
and 1 other, and Denver. We were those games. If they were changed, it would be a different situation. But I think this organization has looked at the big picture. 2030, they're going to build a new stadium. That's what they're gearing up for. They're not worried about next year.
You're saying ownership. Yeah, ownership's got a lot on its plate. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Peter, for the call. I want to get some of these other people in before we have to get to Ben. Is Ian's phone okay or not?
I'm pretty sure it is.
All right, let's try Ian again. By the way, real quickly on the ownership's got a lot on its plate. It wouldn't be to the exclusion of being able to focus on the football operation if they felt like they had to get involved. I would imagine they don't feel like they have to get involved right now. All right, Ian, go ahead. Hopefully we've got a good connection.
Yeah, so we talked on Friday, and I asked you point blank, you're getting Terry back, you got Noah back, you got Jaden back, you got the entire offensive line. Every starter except for Austin Eckler is there. What will the excuse be if they fail? And you said, no, there will be no excuse. They scored 0 points. At some point, it can't be about the injuries all the time when you got everybody back.
Have you listened to the show today? Have you listened to the show today?
I listened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened.
Okay.
And so
So make your point, because obviously I came on here and said today it's not all about the injuries when you lose the way that they lost yesterday to Minnesota.
Right.
Yep. So what else do you want to say?
The point is that, yes, if it were me and I was the owner, I would fire Peters. I would fire Quinn. I would fire Kingsbury, because the results haven't been good enough. And if you
What's
keep
the
pointing
solution?
back to last year,
what's the solution?
Let's go with any Shanahan offensive coordinator. Bump him to head coach.
No, the head coach. Let's first
Anybody on
general
defense.
manager first. Who are you going to hire as a general manager after you fire Adam Peters after 2 years?
I don't know. Let's look at the Patriots as an organization and pick up their assistant general manager. This notion that you can't replace Adam Peters, a guy who traded for Lattimore, who brought in an aging Debo, an aging Von Miller, an aging Bobby Wagner back again, is ludicrous. Last year was a fluke due to the schedule and Jaden playing at an MVP level. The concern now is you have a general manager that I don't believe is good at his job, a head coach that is clearly not knowing what to do on defense as a head coach or a coordinator. And the biggest problem is you have a quarterback who seems to get hurt every week. I mean, I don't understand why he thought it would be a good idea to try to run down Van Ginkel. Like, there's such a lack of intellectual judgment in that moment.
Yeah, compete a little bit. Come on. He's a competitor.
So
You're going to tell me he's going to make a bad play and then he's going to give up? I'd have more people calling in today saying what an absolute quitter he is for not going after it. Look,
by that logic,
yeah.
Kevin, by that logic, is he a warrior and a competitor when he's running in headfirst into coverage on 2nd and 9 on a designed run or a scramble? No, he takes
that's different from that play.
Hits.
That's not every play is the same.
So you thought that was a smart move to run after a linebacker?
I'm just telling
like
you what the reason
him?
for him doing it is.
Yeah, but was that intelligent? Was that
yeah, it's intelligent to compete at the option of not competing. Yes.
Okay, well, he's hurt again. So he got hurt
I don't know if
again.
he's really hurt again. Hopefully he's not. Quinn implied that he could have come back in. Yeah.
But did he come back in?
No, he didn't,
So
which, by the way, I thought was kind of the right decision, didn't you? He could have come back in, but this wasn't for the playoffs. They were down 17-0. And so I actually thought it was the right decision in the moment. Did you have a problem with that decision?
Fine. No.
Would you play him Sunday if he's completely healthy?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
He can't play right now. He's shown this season, go through all your game grades of him, he's a B- or C quarterback this year.
Well, that's different from he can't play this season.
Okay. Well, he's a B-.
Well, I mean, when you say, you just said he can't
Kevin
play
Finn.
this season, of course he's got to play. He's had a B-, C+ season. Well, that's a little bit, can play a little bit at least, right?
Okay. But when the goal is to win a Super Bowl and you thought he's a future Hall of Famer and an MVP candidate.
As you did.
B- quarterback.
Yeah, as you did, which is the reason we both want to see him play. We want to see him get reps. We don't want to see the season end with 6 games in total with, 5 of them being without his supporting cast. We want to see more of it.
Look, we can fast forward to a year or two down the road. I think eventually Quinn and Peters and Kingsbury will be gone. But like I said, in week 3 or week 4, the biggest concern for this franchise going forward is their MVP caliber talent quarterback can't stay healthy. And
that's the one thing you've said that without question, I think is my number one concern when it comes to him. It's actually the only concern I have when it comes to him. But let me just make one thing really clear. Yes, yesterday was different because of the opponent. But Ivan, the number one reason, count 5 spaces till you get to number 2, for 3 and 10, injuries. Period. Injuries. Yes, that's it. And if you can't see that that's the reason they're 3 and 10, it's hard to have a conversation with you because you're not being objective. Let me go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
Big guy, hell to the W, man. How you doing?
I guess.
I say this, man. I mean, everybody's, made some pretty good points and then some pretty outrageous points too. Quinn doesn't have to go. I mean, obviously, I think he's the one reason why the team is still showing up and competing to a certain extent.
Yesterday was a little bit of alarming, though. You would agree with that, right?
I think, yeah. I mean, but I'm not blaming Quinn for this. I guess that's what I'm saying.
I'm not either.
I'm not either. For me to blame goes to three spots: Joe Witt, Cliff Kingsbury, and Adam Peters. All right, it solved the Joe Witt problem. All right, he was just in over his head. Now, I said this last year about Cliff Kingsbury. All right, Jaden bailed him out last year. He bailed him out. When we was going through that losing streak last year, I said the man don't want to commit to the running game. Everybody wanted to blame Robinson. They blamed Robinson. It was the reason why they got rid of him in the offseason. Everybody loved Bill type thing. All right. But this year, I mean, it showed the proof is in the pudding this year because he doesn't play complimentary football. It's not just about protecting Jaden Daniels. It's also about protecting a bad defense.
Yeah.
Defense that you knew it was bad. And he doesn't do that.
That's true.
Look, the people kept saying other teams around the league players or that college style offense, and that's what it was. And he did nothing to evolve that offense. Came back running and doing the same things. And teams said we're not going to let 5 beat us this year. They're going to have to do something else other than let 5.
Well, it's helped that 5 hasn't been on the field for half the games.
No, right. But that's my whole point. What I've been saying about Peters all year long, he doesn't adapt his offense to the strengths or weaknesses of what he has. Kingsbury, yeah. He doesn't adapt to his weaknesses of the team. He's not protected, like I said, not just Jaden, but the defense. He seems like he's in over his head. So we need a new coordinator.
I don't agree with that. And the reason I don't agree with that, Paulie, is that yesterday I have and you can only do this really week to week in each game because they are so much their own entities. Last week, I thought he was brilliant in adapting to attacking Denver's defense. Last year, there were multiple games. Yes, Jaden bailed the whole organization and the whole team out time and time again with brilliant play, but there was a lot of scheme-related stuff involved in that great offensive season.
There's a lot of scheme-related stuff this year, but that's just it. He didn't evolve the offense. It's the same as last year. And teams lined up and said, 5 is not going to beat us.
Yeah.
Because this offense is simple, it's predictable, and we know they're not going to commit to the run game. And that's my whole point. And back to Adam Peters, this is the Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. They need to sit down in the office and they need to scratch this, we're going to lead by veterans thing, man. Because that's not working either. Why the hell did Treylon Burks only have 1 target yesterday, but Noah Brown damn near started the game and played the whole game? Why was Zach Ertz even in the game in a blowout situation? Why was he in the
Noah
game?
Brown had 13 more snaps than Treylon Burks. Yeah, 13 more.
Why was Zach Ertz even in the game? Play Ben Simmons. I mean, they're going to have to make their mind up. Either they're going to have to blow this roster up for real, and that means trading assets like your boy Larry Tunsil, like Houston did. Houston traded him after a 10-win season, their best offensive lineman, to get assets. They're going to have to make their mind up, and they're going to they need to trade Tunsil, and he don't need to be the number 1 person they need to sign in the offseason.
You get so worked up as the call goes along.
Because this is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, man. They got a lot to do. They got a lot of decisions to make.
Well, we're going to be here talking about it for months. So put your list together and get ready because we're about a week away from focusing on that.
Number 1 at the top of my list is get rid of Cliff Kingsbury. That's number 1.
Okay.
This has been a 2-year problem, and it was masked last year by Jaden Daniels, period. Hell to the
right, I'll talk to you later. Good call. Let's go to Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
So in an effort to bring a little levity to the situation, got a new leader, got a new person on top of the leaderboard. Swinging Gate is no longer number 1 in my opinion.
Yesterday was really bad, but Swinging Gate was worse because the team had not been good in forever. So, at least it's coming off last year. But yesterday, that team offensively coming into the game couldn't do anything. Nothing.
Kevin, you're missing it. No, it's not with our team. It's Cleveland. Stefanski. That 2-point conversion. You didn't see the highlight.
I've not watched Cleveland, Tennessee highlights yet. Nope.
Okay, well,
then I totally missed. Why are you talking about Cleveland, Tennessee when the topic is our team?
Because it leads me to the subject of what Mark and Largo brought up, Stefanski.
Okay.
Stefanski has made some questionable decisions when it comes to Shedeur Sanders this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not hot on him as a replacement for Cliff.
Okay.
So
I don't think Cliff's going anywhere. Just so everybody understands that. I'm not gonna say it's impossible. We got 4 games left, but I'm looking. I want to look at the play now. Now you've got me intrigued about the 2-point
I don't think
conversion.
I don't think he's going anywhere either. But just in case. Also, oh God. We've had 2 years in a row of anomalies.
This plays awesome.
Now, right?
That was great.
You see it?
Well, they totally butchered
right?
it. It looks like Judkins is supposed to pitch it. It looks like the Philly special, right, or not?
Yeah, he's supposed to throw that ball.
Yeah.
New on the leaderboard, right?
Yeah. All right. What else? What else you got? Sorry.
Last thing. We've had 2 years in a row of anomalies. We need to go for the trifecta next year. And somehow, some way, have the defense be miraculously good.
Yeah. Well,
and then we can have another season.
But the defense was bad last year too. One of these days, because you are like me, you remember all of these teams. I think this might be the worst defense I've ever watched for our team.
It wouldn't surprise me. But look, we had the whole season of 2024 was an anomaly based on past results. This year was an anomaly based on injuries. So complete the trifecta.
Yeah.
Defense becomes miraculously good. We have I have no.
That'd be a miracle.
No doubts. I have no doubts about the offense being competent enough to be able to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, me too.
I've said all season long,
way, as long as it's healthy.
Defense. So there you go.
100%. 5 new players, new coordinator. You got to figure that thing out. Thanks, Anthony. Alex and Wheaton, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to whittle this down to 1 to be super quick with you. Am I nuts for thinking that Mikey Sainer still actually was a bright spot on defense yesterday? I mean, he flashed a few times, and I think Jefferson's closing line, who he was singled up against a lot, from what I can tell, was like 2 catches for 16 yards or something. Am I wrong?
I mean, we're really going to break down yesterday's game from that perspective. I didn't think anybody played well defensively. I thought Bobby Wagner may have, tackled well yesterday. Other than that, Quan Martin had a couple of near good plays. I can't think of anybody else that was really that good. I mean, they didn't stop them at all. Yeah.
Stop Jefferson pretty much.
Well, I mean, Jefferson, by the way, has been taken out of some of these games with McCarthy just in general, but it doesn't matter if everybody else is open. They couldn't stop anything.
I'm saying, I thought Sanger still had a decent game. I thought he had an encouraging game.
You know what? Yeah. I can't wait to hear Steve Suter's breakdown film-wise on Wednesday of that. Maybe he thought he had a good game. I remember the play that he and Will Harris made on the bubble screen to Jefferson. I remember that one. Thanks, Alex. Let's go to Ivan in Florida. Ivan, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, what's up, man? Hey,
what's up,
speaking of levity and Dan Snyder, Kevin, you're going to be like the movie Bernie. You're going to be dragging up Dan Snyder for the next 10 years every time we miss the playoffs.
Why? How did I bring him up today? Did I bring him up today?
Yes, you did a couple times. But anyway,
what was the context?
I don't know. You always talk about the previous administration or the previous.
Let me just remind, because you haven't called in a while. Ivan from Florida is the one fan that loved Dan Snyder and the Dan Snyder era. So just understand that as context for whatever he's going to say. All right, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, look, on paper and in theory, we're expected to lose to Dallas and twice to the Giants. Twice to the Eagles in the upcoming games. So why in the world would you want to win in New York?
They're underdogs.
That's idiocy to lose.
Why in the world? Win
a game in New York?
Mac, I heard Max's voice. I missed what you said. Say it again.
I said, on paper and in theory, you're expected to lose to Dallas and twice to the Eagles. So why in the world would you want to win in New York? That would be malpractice to not get the highest draft pick possible for a run next year. If you got a top 3 pick, you're probably going to you could get a player and multiple picks for a top three.
You're right. You're right about that.
Hey, Kevin, look,
it's better to have a higher
injury,
pick than a lower pick. There's no doubt about it.
Picking
but
number 1 is better than picking number 2. Kevin, I agree that injuries, were the number 1 reason. But it would be kind of foolish to ignore reasons 2 through 5 for the failures that we had this year. You can't discount them. And Kevin, you had a caller call in about college scouts, and I don't know about the situation, but I think it's
that's Kevin in Arlington who keeps saying that they kept the same scouts, and they did primarily keep the same scouts. True.
Kevin, it's critical that our focus should be on college scouting this year. We have to maximize our picks, and I don't know, whether he's right or wrong, but our picks are critical. And I wouldn't fire what's his name? I wouldn't fire Quinn or Kingsbury.
Or Kingsbury.
I wouldn't fire any of them. But next year it's playoffs or bust. Everybody's job should be on the line if we don't make the playoffs next year, Kevin. Everybody.
Fair enough.
All right. Thank you, man.
Yep. Thanks for the call. By the way, if they were to swap out a bunch of the scouts, that impacts the 2027 draft. The scouting staff that's there now is preparing for the 2026 draft. Now, I guess they could hire scouts from other teams. Those of you that I didn't get to, my apologies. Ben Standig next. Ben Standing's with us, as he is every Monday and Friday. So that one was different for me than all of the other ones because of who they were facing and what that team looked like coming in offensively. What were your big takeaways?
Yeah, no, I mean all the commentary about hitting a new low, 100% true. I was reminded during when Flip Saunders was the coach of the Wizards, and they were going through one of their terrible seasons, and somebody in the media made a comment to him at a press conference I was at about hitting rock bottom or whatever. And he's like, "Hey, never assume you've hit rock bottom." He is, basically you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah,
and then that's perfect example. I mean, it felt like that 4-game stretch when they lost, or they were losing every game by 21 points or more. Like, you can't get worse than that, and yet somehow they did, because both sides of the ball were completely ineffective. I'm sure we'll talk about Jaden, but when JJ McCarthy, who prior to the game, Next Gen Stats showed that he had the lowest QBR of any quarterback this season, with at least 5 starts out of 36 quarterbacks. But more than that, going back to 2000, his QB rating for his career, because he only played this year, was the lowest QBR rating for any quarterback picked in the first round. And that guy went 9 for 10 for 91 yards and a touchdown on the first 2 drives. They convert 5 third downs on that second drive that took 12 minutes, 19 plays, and he completed passes, I think, of 12, 21, and 13 yards, all on third and longs. That is just insane. You can't talk to me about improvement on defense and that happens. I mean, obviously, I don't think JJ McCarthy is as bad as his start to the career has been, but that's where it's been. That's where the conversation was. So for that to occur is just beyond hideous. And then offensively, that first drive, it's promising. They get all the way down to the 4, all the way down to the 2, I guess. I did not love some of the play calls down there with 3 straight passes on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th down. But then the Dolphins just after that just kind of disappeared. And Minnesota's got a really good D, but we can't just keep saying. I think I heard you say something about this earlier. We can't just keep saying injuries at some point. And that's why the last 2 games, the overtime games, were at least hopeful, because okay, they're still losing, but the games are more competitive, right? You can't keep getting smacked by this. This is definitely a new low for sure.
Yeah, well, it is injuries number 1, 2, and 3, but that doesn't explain everything, especially yesterday, more so than, say, the Seattle and the Detroit games, which were excellent opponents, both sides of the ball, etc. What you just described as far as JJ McCarthy was the thing that was so alarming about yesterday, because in 4 drives that Jaden was in there, they moved it into the red zone twice, and then they faltered. And I don't know if it's on him. The check on the Van Ginkel play, it looked like he checked into it. I sat here on Friday and said, one of the keys is don't throw a bubble screen or a flat pass towards Van Ginkel's side. This dude just picks everything off. He's always disruptive. It looked like they were a little bit unprepared for the pressures in Brian Flores' game, but defensively, how you a 19-play, 98-yard drive that took Washington gave up the ball with 2 minutes and 42 seconds left in the first quarter after that 4th and goal drop by Debo in the end zone, and didn't touch it again until there were 5:38 left in the second quarter. That's unbelievable. And I guess to me, it's alarming because of that more than anything else. And the fact that Shanahan-style offenses, they've just not been able to figure out. To me, the priority goes defense, 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 and it starts with many more players and a new coordinator, and it can't be Quinn. What do you say?
Yeah, no, I think all that makes sense. The one thing I think I said on Friday, I thought Washington could win this game, but both teams are going to view it as a get-right game. But the JJ McCarthy thing was why I thought, okay, maybe Washington can get this. The only wrinkle I had was Justin Jefferson's a beast. Washington is very thin at corner. If he goes off, all right, I kind of get it. He didn't. I think he had like one of the lowest, 12 yards. He had like the lowest games. The tight ends just, all
it was
the
tight ends. It was Addison. It was Naylor, the other receiver. Yeah.
Right. All the extra stuff. So yeah, I'm with you. I think
the fact that they ran the ball right down their throats, which we've gotten used to now over 33 games in 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Like to me, the two games against Miami and Denver, while they seem to be executing better, it seemed like it was just more of a talent issue. But I wasn't looking at it going, "Wow, they've really, improved." I mean, Bo Nix, Denver drove right down the field in overtime to score the touchdown. It wasn't like there was much stopping there. So I was like, okay, they've improved, but it's still the low bar. This is definitely, set the bar back down even further, as Dan Quinn himself said after the game. So yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, the defense, they've got to, they're going to just have to have a huge overhaul. And I do agree with you that it's not only that it shouldn't be Dan Quinn, because it's just a lot of responsibility, but also we have to discuss, should it even be the system, right? In 2 years here,
right,
it just hasn't worked. And look, we can discuss personnel, the injuries. It's not just that the injuries happen, it's that it exposed the lack of depth everywhere.
Right.
So all that is a factor, and that's not just solely on the scheme. But yeah, we have not seen really at any point here the scheme working. Like, even if you go back to the Rivera, Jack Del Rio days, 2 of those 4 years, the defense was actually pretty good.
Yeah, 22 was excellent.
Yeah. I mean, even the year when they made the playoffs, I think the defense got exposed against Tom Brady in that game, but still, that was a driving force for them to be able to win those games down the stretch. So the fact that in 2 years here there has been nothing, and there's a lot of, we can discuss the older roster, the fact that guys like Johnny Newton maybe have not stepped up the way people had hoped by this point, et cetera. But yes, the scheme is definitely, I think, has to be a huge part of the conversation, meaning it can't just be Dan Quinn does or doesn't call the plays. It's what is the actual scheme. I remember I had on Ian Rappaport on my podcast a few weeks ago. It was right at the point when Quinn said he was going to take over the play calling. And Rappaport was like, hey, you know what, I wonder, when they hired Cliff Kingsbury, it was sort of a, not outside the box, but it was going different than what the rest of the league was going in terms of the hurry-up offense. Would Dan Quinn look to do something like that now on defense to sort of shake things up? And I definitely have to, whether it's something more extreme or just a new voice, a new vision, something I think has to probably give this offseason.
I think I will get to Jaden with Ben to find out about, his health, et cetera, and Ertz as well. But I do think that there was a bit of naivete last year and even early this year about what they were defensively, because they got shredded last year on the ground, and it didn't seem to come out in a lot of Tell the Truth Mondays. And then this year, remember early on, they put way too much stock in the Giants, Raiders, and Chargers game about what they had done defensively against teams that were ravaged along the offensive line. And then they played the two healthy teams, the Packers and the Falcons, and they couldn't get off the field. So I hope that the reality check to Tell the Truth Monday is we literally stink on defense so bad that pretty much everybody, with the exception of a few players, they got to go. And we've got the organizationally, we've got to try to find the best defensive coordinator. And we have really got to add 5 new starters, period. And by the way, they'll probably, to count on starters for next year, they got to come in free agency, more likely than not, unless your super high first round pick is ready to go right away. But look, they were injured on defense, injured on offense. It's the number one reason. Anybody with any level of intellect understands that if you followed the NFL. With that said, that defense was not going to be good if it was healthy. I mean, it's, that's my projection. It was not going to be a good defense, even if it had stayed healthy. They've got to address that more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. Look, the defense last year, the games against the Eagles obviously were pretty prime examples as to how poor they were defensively, particularly on the run on the outside. And that's why they made the point of being in Dietrich Wise but that was one human being, and then he gets hurt in week 2, and then everyone's like, oh well, I guess that plan kind of goes out the window, getting bigger on the line. Yeah, no, look, if you look at the group right now for next year, and I'm going to assume that Deron Payne is a cap casualty. The only guys who are probably going to be in the starting lineup, if everything is, if they can kind of do what they want, Javon Kinlaw, based on the contract, he's had flash moments, but he's been very inconsistent. I think that's fair to say. Frankie Louvu, presumably he's going to still be here, and Trey Amos in the secondary once he comes back. And if you want to say Will Harris or Quan Martin, okay, but I don't necessarily know that has to be a lock. That's kind of it. And we're not even talking about the depth. That's just the starters. You have that, defensive line. You rotate a bunch of guys in and out. Dorrance Armstrong, okay, he'll be back, I guess, but he's coming off an ACL. I don't know what he'll be like next year. I'm presuming Dedrick Wise is probably gone. He was only here on a 1-year deal. And, Bobby Wagner, 1-year deal. We'll see what they do with him. You'd have to imagine they move on, but, he's valuable in certain ways, but other ways less so. So, yeah, they have a huge amount of questions. I mean, again, I think all things being equal, if the offense, if they retain Chris Paul, I even wrote this week that I wonder, could Zach Ertz come back only from the standpoint of, obviously he's been productive, and realistically they can't fix every one of their issues in one off season. So maybe you say, okay, let's bring him back, have that be, sort of the, that's like good enough maybe for now, and we'll fix all the other stuff. Well, now that's not even an option, right? So, but at least on offense they have, between Jaden, the offensive line, and Terry, there's a pretty good baseline there. Maybe they'll consider Chris Rodriguez more part of that because he's been playing well when given the ball the last few weeks.
When given the ball, yeah.
But at least that part, like, okay, get add a speed guy somewhere to maybe add a running back and the tight end. We'll say the defense, though, yes, it's got to be a lot. And again, that's the thing. It's not just you need the starters. The depth is just non-existent, and it has been. And this is a huge part of the problem. And this also ties into, we know about the draft history before Peters and Quinn showed up, but the draft history since they've been here, we keep waiting for some of these guys to step up, and it's just not happening.
All right. So before we get to Jaden and also get an update from you on Ertz. So this fan base like I do, and there's a lot of outrage. There's a lot of emotion. It's better than the opposite, which is no emotion, no outrage, I guess. But, a lot of people, not everybody, they kind of want everybody fired. So let's take them one at a time and tell me, A, if there's any justification for it, and B, if you think they do anything about it, starting with Peters. You can just say no and no, yes and yes. Is there any sort of justification for the seat to be warm? And then 2, do you think that there's any thought of doing anything about it?
No, I can't imagine. I mean, that job in particular, it's not a 1-year kind of fix. Like I wrote the other day about how if you looked at the players on the current rosters for the NFC East teams, of the guys who were there prior to the players here and now, but those prior to 2024 when Peter showed up, Dallas had like 25 guys still here, and they'd earned like 15 Pro Bowls, draft picks. The Eagles were like at 24, and all their, so many of their main starters. And the Giants also was about like 21 and had Dexter Lawrence and some other guys. And this group only had 12 guys who were still here, and that's not even necessarily, it's not a huge amount of studs. So you have to start with that baseline. But that said, the draft classes have not been particularly, impactful beyond the quarterback so far. And I do think, and I thought this in real time, that it's not so much that they were bringing the band back together on defense last year. As you said, it wasn't very good. But the age part, like, you don't have to get young guys only from the draft. You can go find young guys who are, this is a sort of not the best example, but like, for example, like Mitchell Tinsley was here on the practice squad, didn't do much. Okay, whatever, they moved on. He goes to Cincinnati and has been something of a productive player. Where was that guy? And maybe I'm forgetting somebody, but like, you can go find guys on other teams. So to that end, the front office has some questions, but no, I can't imagine that Peters isn't any kind of
Manuel Forbes was here. So Peters, I'm with you. No justification. Nothing going to happen. Quinn.
So my inkling to say no. Again, it's only year 2. I can't forget last year. There's something there. The injuries ruined it. But that said, I wouldn't feel great about life going into the offseason losing 12 in a row, right? I mean, that is, and like you said, it's not just they're losing. 5 of these losses have been by a huge margins. So that is disturbing. And if that were to keep up, not just the losses but the blowouts, I think you would at least have to be what's happening here. So I don't think he's in any danger. That would seem to go against sort of Josh Harris's. He tends to give looking at his other teams, he tends to give these guys longer time to work things out. And again, I don't think you can ignore last year's success, but boy, 12 losses in a row at the end of the year would be pretty rough. I'm not saying that getting one win would change everything, but man, that would be really tough to go from 3-2 to 3.
So you think there's
14.
a chance that if they lose out and it's 3-14, the seat could be at least a little bit warm with management?
I mean, I just think there has to be at least a conversation. What happened here? Is it just the injuries? Like what? How did it? I think like I heard you say, I think earlier in your show, good coaching staff figure out ways that even with injuries, even with problems, to at least be competitive. This is
and yesterday for me, just so you know, the Seattle and Detroit games, which were the other 2 legitimate blowouts, the Dallas game's different. It was 20-15 or whatever, and Jaden got hurt as they were trying to make it a 1-score game. That wasn't, totally one-sided throughout. The Chiefs game was 7-7. Seattle and Detroit were the 2 in which this team was legitimately non-competitive until yesterday. Those 2 teams are really good. Yesterday's team flat out sucks on offense. They're good defensively. They suck on offense. That is the alarming part. So now, if you get like what if they lose 31-0 the same way to the Giants? What if the Giants go off offensively? So yeah, but I think I disagree with you. I don't think the seat will be warm. I don't think it should be. I think Quinn comes back, but it's interesting to hear you say that, further added context of 12 straight losses and non-competitive losses like yesterday could change that scenario. What about Kingsbury?
Yeah, and just to be clear, like I don't really think it's going to happen. I'm just saying you have to have a conversation of what the hell is
I know.
happening.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So Kingsbury, it's interesting, right? The offense during this whole stretch has been, okay-ish for the most part, right? I mean, despite the injuries, Mariota was doing a reasonable job. The fact that they had Chris Moore, in Jaden's last 2 starts before yesterday, Chris Moore played the most snaps of any receiver, and he's the one that gets cut when Noah Brown comes back. I think says everything.
Did he get cut? They cut him? Oh, really?
Yeah, I assume he'll come back to the practice squad, but yeah, he got cut when they brought up Noah Brown off of IR. So I think that kind of says everything
that tells you a lot. Yeah. The guy that played the most snaps this year got released.
Right. And the second guy was Jalen Lane, who obviously is, that's big receiver's not been his thing. So, you got to give him a pass for all these kinds of things. But that said, we mentioned this sort of in passing a few moments ago. This was another game where just like, man, Chris Rodriguez is running the ball well. Yeah. I get it. At a certain point in the game, you kind of have to throw more, but I don't know that they had reached it yet by the time it felt like he was already getting moved on. And I really did not love
it. Had not at second and goal at the 2.
Right. I did not love those 3 plays. Like I get it. Brandon Coleman was open. If Jaden takes the snap, looks that way and throws, if he catches the ball, it's probably a touchdown, but I don't love that you've lost 7 in a row. You're 3-9. You're on the road. You're already down 7-0 against a really good defense. That play just felt way too cute for where this team was at. Again, if it works, okay, but like I just didn't like that. And Jaden looked like he hesitated. And then, I get it. Debo, the ball was in Debo's hands on 4th down. It looked like he was stumbling as the ball arrived. So, if he stays upright, probably catches it. We're not having this, but I didn't love the 3 passes in a row at the 2 when Chris Rodriguez had just been running very well.
I can't imagine anybody did. By the way, what's interesting about that, and I'm sure you thought about this and maybe wrote it about it, is that Jaden as a designed runner was not an option yesterday. Now they barely had the ball. He was in for all of 4 drives. But they moved the ball into the red zone on 2 of those drives, and there wasn't one designed run called. And I don't think there was a zone read called. That 1st and goal at the 4 may have been a zone read, and he left it with Rodriguez. But I don't think there. So some of what they've had in their arsenal at the goal line, I don't think they had in the game plan. I think that's what Quinn was referring to when he barely answered the question about whether or not he had talked to Kingsbury. But back to we all agree. Rodriguez nearly 8 yards per carry, and it's 1st and goal, and he gets 2, and it's 3 straight throws, and he carries the ball one more time in the first half before they come out heavy in the second half. But on Cliff, justifiable? Will his seat be warm? And then what do you think happens? I got 30 seconds.
I think my question here is, he's the only coordinator that goes this no huddle to the extreme that he does. What does he know that all the other teams don't know? And when your team has been in and out of the lineups have changed constantly as they have, and you've had random pieces in there, where's the adjustment? Should he have made the adjustments? I think, to me, again, it's like the Quinn thing. I want to have a conversation about what went on here. And also, of course, what makes the most sense for your quarterback. We can't keep him getting exposed and getting hit. So is this the best system, or should we go with something more traditional? I think that at least as a conversation.
Right. Got it. Real quickly, Jaden's health, and will he play Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, Dan Quinn said he could have gone back in, and he said he reiterated he thinks these games are important. So I imagine.
Did we lose Ben? Max?
He's still connected on the phone, but he just dropped out.
He dropped out. Well, you know what? He dropped out right in time, and he said what we needed him to say. We're done for the day. Chris is next.